Y'all, I'm back with another video. Hold on, let me turn this off. I'm back with another video, and I wanted to talk about the difference between the ignoring and the polar. I've kind of been doing this impromptu function dichotomy kind of thing, and functional difference in socionics. The differences of functions and how they practically manifest, and some kind of I need to get over, and some misconceptions, common misconceptions about certain functions and whatnot. So the ignoring, I guess we could start with that, is in the id block, which is the ignoring and the demonstrative. Yo, what's up, Shane? What up, brother? What up, brother? What's going on, brother? Good to have you checking in, man. It's cool to see your little icon pop up. So yeah, just we're talking about the difference between the ignoring and the polar. And so one key thing to recognize is the general attitude of the id block as such. I've kind of thought about the id block in different ways, and I still haven't found a very apt way of thinking about the id block and the kind of attitude that derives from the functions that make up the id block. And I've heard people, the way that I kind of think of it is this: your ego block is your main occupation, right? Let's say you are a mechanic. The ego block is your occupation, your mechanic, and the id block are the tools that you use every day in order to functionally be a mechanic. Now, or you could say different tools that you use that may not be critical to your like a particular job that you're working on, or a particular car that you're working on per se, but it's something that's just kind of running around. What's up, y'all? I don't even know who are all of you. Do you like pickles? What kind of question is that? I love that kind of question. Yeah, pickles are great. Lily, what's up? Puo or whatever, however you, what's going on? I don't know all you guys. You guys jump. There's a bunch of people that surge in my videos at one time. It's very fascinating. TRMR, what's up? What's up, guys? Truly, I don't know if these are real people or not. This looks like these are like pity subscribers, where it's like they're bots. That's the new wave of YouTube, where they're just gonna give you like bot followers to make you feel better about your channel. So, Haley, if you are real people, I do apologize. Haley, no, I don't. Jog my memory. Do you like fruit snacks? Gary Lee's long lost uncle. Yeah, fruit snacks slap. But anyway, as enticing as this is to keep looking down, I probably shouldn't, because I'll also probably wreck. Yeah, Haley, I don't really remember who you are, to be quite honest. I have short-term memory loss, and ironically, long-term memory loss. But if you've been here before, thanks for coming back. But yeah, so the id block, right? I've tried to think about it I've tried to conceptualize it in different ways. And I've heard people talk about it as it's a part of your worldview, and that's fine, I guess. But the only problem is, why are you including and metabolizing or including information in your worldview that you don't value? That does not register to me. It seems like whatever information that exists in your worldview, at the very least, must be valued information. Otherwise, why would it be a part of your worldview? Why would you find it significant enough to incorporate in your worldview? But let's get to it. I'm kind of going off. But with the with the ignoring, this is the opposite. What do you want to say? It's the opposite, the same domain as your lead function, but the opposite attitude, basically, the opposite direction, the opposite. If your lead function is NE, your ignoring would be NI. If your lead function's SI, your ignoring would be SE. So your lead, if it's introverted, then your ignoring is extroverted, and vice versa, but it will be the same domain. So you're ignoring, you're using this and metabolizing this information pretty consistently. It's three-dimensional and it's strong. So you're going to, like, if there is an environment that's filled with extroverted intuition, for example, and you're the one generating that information, you're talking about possibilities, theorizing what could be or what couldn't be, right? That's the other side of the valuing, having any as your lead function, is not that you're simply generating ideas, but you're also discarding stupid ideas, or ideas that you don't find that there's enough innate potential in it. Now, we could get semantical and talk about how Model G would account for that, because they would say that, for example, with a IEE, they would have negative NE or NE minus. That would be the one that would be more responsible for dismissing bad ideas and calling them out and saying this has negative potential. But in a Model A conception, and this is still kind of my idea, and I get it, you know, that you lean one way more than the other, sure, that's fine. But functionally, having inert extroverted intuition in the lead position will at the very least mean that when it comes to ideas and ideation and theorizing and projecting what's possible into the world, you're going to enforce, at the very least, what you think is innately profound and possible and all the above, right? And so even in that mindset that you're pushing out what you think has potential, basically means almost indirectly that all the other ideas that are represented around you aren't good enough to represent. They're not good enough to take on, which is why you are standing over and above them by offering your own conception of what's going to happen, right? So even if we don't necessarily take a Model G interpretation of the charge differences with IMEs, you can still see that that a lead NE user can show signs of negative an awareness of NE minus, basically, right? So whatever. I've always thought of it as something that you're good, but you don't like, can't help people when this opportunity comes up around you. Yeah. Watching my city. Nice, man. Yeah, I mean, you don't really care to help people with it. care kind of implies that you value that information to some extent, and it would also kind of mean that that you can recognize that information enough, which implies strength, in order to help someone. If someone else is deficient in this information, then it just stands to reason that if you're providing aid, then you have a better ability to metabolize that kind of information. Like you're not necessarily, dude, traffic is so stupid. We have AI, but we still have traffic. Like, what? But when people are talking about this information, we'll do an any lead, because that's what I was referring to before. And you're offering all these potentials and possibilities, and someone says that's not likely to happen because of all of these events and these moments in time that are going to lead to this inevitable conclusion. You would be miffed. You would be like, well, I've already evaluated the trends within time, and they're pretty self-evident and boring. And so simply because I'm theorizing about what could happen means that I have some general understanding of what's happening in front of me in order to do that. That's akin to Elon Musk theorizing about what life on Mars could be like. Bro, come on, dude. Get over that. It's like, people can't. Yeah, sorry, guy. I gotta do this. Yeah, then just get over. What system are you relying on in socionics? Mostly Model A. I've become a little bit more charitable with certain aspects of Model G, but I just I can see the energy metabolism makes sense to me. Like, generally speaking, extroverts have more energy to do extroverted things. Like, that just seems commonsensical. And I'm sure there's probably a way to incorporate both. I haven't done the work in order to see how you can overlap both systems together. There are certain parts of Model G that I think threaten the definition of the functions and the elements, and it sometimes seems like some of the Model G enthusiasts still have remnants of MBTI jargon embedded in their conception of socionics, and so I'm sure there is a way that you could integrate both of them together. And I've looked at Model G here and there, but not super intentionally. But has no sense of what's practical, considering he's an ILE. Well, he has no sense of what's practical, but he's an engineer. He has four-dimensional extroverted logic. And so if he's an ILE, he would have to have an idea of what's practical and what isn't. His ability to design rockets, his ability to understand economics in order to audit the government for these are very practical things that require an understanding how things work at a basic level. Not necessarily at a basic level, but like if you're probably not going to do well if you have one-dimensional TE in those environments. Probably not, right? I mean, you would be basically relying on other people's knowledge and then incorporating them into your own kind of crystallized system of thought, whatever. But ILEs not being practical doesn't make sense. One, because they're right next to LSEs, I think on the benefit ring, right? So, and I mean, they have 4-dimensional TE. How would they fail in being practical if they have 4-dimensional TE? I get what you're saying to some degree. I wouldn't say that ILEs are impractical though, but I'm just being picky. Knowledge is complicated while the Western version is simple to digest. Yeah. Ignoring SC, they don't moving stuff around, exerting themselves. But if their friend needs help moving, they'll do it effectively. Yeah, and basically the only time that you really incorporate your ignoring is when your lead element allows it to come out. And so, for example, if an ILE is really interested in a particular concept or idea, they will temporarily dip into NI in order to understand how this idea has come to fruition, or where this idea has originated in the path in between ideas, and understanding what's happening in front of them within history, and how do things kind of evolve over time. If they find that idea is profound enough, they might temporarily let NI out sparingly, but it's always going to be on the demand of whatever the lead function determines for it. And yeah, you're like, another example you could say is with TE ignoring. For you to scrutinize information and to categorize information into discrete parts and boxes and categories, whatever the case is, presupposes that you have actual information that you can analyze, right? And that information could be literally just the objective facts that are in front of you in the real world that you're seeing, just observing how things work in reality. Or you're amassing data and researching something, researching politics, or researching history, or researching what have you, whatever it is. But you have to have data in order to do that. What would you be scrutinizing if you don't have information and you haven't acquired information? And so you're never using the ignoring for its own sake, truly. And so it's almost like a TI user going to seek out relevant facts for the end of being able to scrutinize them and categorize them. And so basically your ignoring kind of just is subservient to your lead and kind of just gets devalued, and it's just a means to an end. And which is kind of similar to your demonstrative. The difference is, I don't really think you turn off your demonstrative. Like, your demonstrative is always active, whereas your ignoring kind of has more of a on and off switch between the lead and itself, and it just naturally is on off. One, because you're inert with your lead and you're ignoring. You're not flexible, you're stubborn, you're not moving. And so there's less dynamics, less fluidity in using your lead versus your ignoring. So it makes sense that you would want to stay in your lead as long as possible. It's more native to you. You understand how it works, and you're offering it to society. And it seems like when people bring up you're ignoring, it's kind of slowing you down. It's like, yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's say with Effie, you're giving an emotional speech and you're getting people fired up about something, and then certain individuals come up to you and say, okay, like, can we meet one-on-one and talk about this thing and this vision that you have? And I really wish you were talking about how this is going to impact people and their relationships with other people, and just harping on the relational part. Well, the FE leads, like, I'm not there necessarily to be relatable per se, and to make people feel like they're seen or whatever the case is. It's like I'm here to incite emotional uproars in people, and cause people to move, right? And obviously that's more of a beta view of FE, right, and use of FE. But it's like I'm not looking at how, particular individuals are being drawn to what I'm saying on an individualistic basis, that I'm like playing this political game and I'm trying to politic towards one person that I really want to, like, I want everyone to share in this general. Phone was overheating. Feels bad. Sorry about that. Guys are probably like, what just happened? But yeah, so you don't want to have to turn off your lead function in order to accommodate your ignoring function. And there's probably some more detailed ways to articulate dynamic between your lead and your ignoring. And this is kind of all off the dome here, but and then your polar, we'll just jump to that real quick. It's kind of self-explanatory. I mean, your polar, first of all, whenever you're talking about someone's ignoring, you should always, like, you're going to hear it in conversation. It'll come up every once in a while. Another way to look for it is if you identify their base, obviously you're going to see the ignoring function come out. But you can hear remnants of it kind of basically assumed in language when they're talking about their lead. And so practically this could be something like when you're talking to an SE base and they're talking about the need to be strong and to oppose the enemy, whatever the case is, you're having the conversation about that, and they talk about, it'd be something like, there's a time to fight, and we fought, and we're going to keep fighting. But we need to kind of, this is kind of a bad analogy, but that's a bad analogy. Let me go back on that one. Let's say you have an SE bro, whatever, working out, grinding all the time, and just like getting jacked and all this kind of stuff, pushing around weight. They like the competition of it and the fire of it. And they kind of hint at, yes, this also has some, health. There's healthy benefits from working out, and I'm starting to feel a little bit better. But they're kind of bypassing that information, and they're talking about how certain supplements are making them feel and all this kind of stuff, and the effects of the supplements and how it's making them stronger, and they obviously have an understanding of, how their body is receiving that kind of information. But they go right back into, I just jacked up my leg last week, and instead of letting it heal, and I can kind of feel it move around in there, but I don't want it to atrophy, so I'm just going to I know my limits, right? So even within that kind of conversation, they have an awareness of how far they can go before something breaks. All SE bases have that. Which really is what causes them to challenge themselves, because they know what they can take and what they can't, but they're always trying to get to the edge of, I can keep going, I can keep pushing myself. They're not ever unaware of that information like an SE polar or an SI polar. An SI polar, like an LIE, would work, doing all this research,